Shalom, shalom. First, I want to start off by giving all honor, praises, and infinite glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash, double honors unto the elders, apostles, and bishops of GMS Great Millstone who rule well, teach and edify, and peace and blessings to you, sincere Akim, while Akwat in his house of the faith. My name is Yeshaya from the GMS Arizona Church in Adonai Ratazah. Gonna make an edifying video going into the physicality of this truth and the fact that, you know, even on a spiritual standpoint, even in a fleshly standpoint, the Lord will develop you. The scriptures talk about do nothing in partiality. The Lord covers all bases. He doesn't, when it comes to him perfecting his plant, the scriptures say, I've kept a grape from a cluster in whom I have labored greatly to make perfect. And when the Lord labors something greatly, he's the ultimate master of all things. So he understands how to get into every crevice of whatever it is that he's trying to get to, and Lord willing, we be a part of the elect. Lord willing, the Lord shows favor and mercy upon us. The Lord's going to dissect you from the inside out, and you're going to see physical changes, but chiefly, we should look for the spiritual changes. But there's a video going into how those physical changes may, come about, because the elder, Zakhan Kassad, out here in the GMS Arizona Church put this in the chat, man. And it's real edifying because when brothers come into this truth, even in a physical standpoint, they get brightened. The scriptures talk about that wisdom will make that face to shine bright. Like you are light unto the earth. So when you start following these laws, statutes, and commandments, when you start walking in this truth, the Lord will even change, your physical body, man. When you reject, look at Daniel with the king's meat in Daniel the second chapter, the first chapter. One of the beginning chapters of the book of Daniel. They rejected the king's meat. They didn't want to eat what the king was offering them, nor drink the wine that the king was offering them, but instead they ate like basically plant-based. And at the end of that, they were active, they were, feeling good, but then the other guys that was eating the king's meat looked sluggish, and you know, and even in this truth, the apostles pushed that through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, the health. No, you in this truth, man, you a health nut. You doing fasts, spiritual fasts. You're doing mental health fasts. Getting off of social media. And that shows just even in how you are, man. Makes your whole body shift. When you decrease cortisol levels, that decreases inflammation. That better sleep generally helps every single part and portion of your body. So you'll actually physically look better. And this is a thing to notice too when it comes to this truth, man. And I'm not out here trying to push no, feel good, look good type of doctrine, because we go through hell. But the fact that you come into this truth and you start following these laws, statutes, and commandments, you're going to see spiritual changes and you're going to see physical changes as well. Your body will be more adapted to discomfort. Your body will be more adapted to living in a righteous manner. Your physical temple will literally be used to, those type of things. But this is finishing out this. It says you don't need more time to heal. You need more experiences that show you your nervous system a different reality. So think about like a Navy SEAL and a newborn baby, man. They're both human beings. They're both flesh and bodies. But that Navy SEAL has got maturity, and they've gone through intense training to make their mind as hard as it has to be. That's why they're a hardened warrior. Look at a real devoted gangster and a scientist. You know, sometimes scientists have more willpower than a devoted gangster because they carry a heavy burden. And their body is used to carrying that. And ultimately, in this truth, we carrying the heaviest burden. We fighting against this devil, man, fighting against this society. But let's get into some precepts. This is Psalms chapter 34 and verse 6. It says, the poor man cried, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of his troubles. And that's the thing. The troubles, it's not just one or two things you're going to go through in his faith, man. His faith is a constant work where the Lord is constantly putting you in that pot, man. And he's melting away all your impurities. And then the Lord will take you out and you can shine for a little bit. But then at the end of the day, you have to go back in. That's why the scriptures say, Abraham even asked the Lord, like, Lord, you judging me even into my white hairs. You know, the Lord's judgment just keeps on going and going all throughout your life for as long as the Lord's dealing with you, man. But this is you know, and saving him out of all his troubles, and that's the importance of going through things, man. You know, if we all went through one thing one time, you know, you wouldn't be able to unlock all the different perspectives through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua of that given situation. You wouldn't understand the whole situation as well as you would. You know, and that's why we have brothers that go through things, man. You know, when thou art brought low, and you know, when thou art converted, strengthen thy brethren. So the brothers will literally go through some tough, real BS situations in their life, man. And then they'll go to a brother and be like, look, this is that, that is this. And they're able to offer up a perspective through the spirit to strengthen that brother so that he can, you know, stay on point in his walk. You know, iron sharpeneth iron, man. It says the angel of the Lord encampeth around about them that fear him and delivereth them. So even the angels, you know, the angels, you know, are ultimately the Lord's messengers, man. And they do the duty of the Lord. You know, you're praying to the Lord to ask for strength and the spirit to fear him more. They'll literally also, you know, I believe that the angels could literally change your whole makeup, man. You know, they could put more, you know, they could put better hormones in your body. They can strengthen even your temple to be able to handle that increase in spirituality, man. Because your body, you know, ultimately is a temple that holds that spirit, man. It's like a shell, you know, and we don't, you know, you can't be all cracked, dusty, and broken shell, man. You want the shell to be taken care of. You know, you know, these are the temples that the Lord has, you know, bestowed upon us. You know, that holds that spirit. So when the Lord gives you these increases, sometimes even your body, you know, goes with it. You know, certain brothers that pray for more knowledge in the herbs, then they start doing the herbs. Well, that's a physical, you know, adaptation of their body to the new way of that, and also, you know, an increase of faith because they've seen that the herbs work. You know, they've seen that if they take these certain herbs, it fixes the things out of their body, which makes them feel better in the spirit, so it increases their faith in the word, because the scriptures talk about not dealing with Esau's medicines, man. You know, and Lord willing, I'm portraying this perspective, you know, edifyingly, man, because, you know, at the end of the day, brothers change. You know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months, man. A brother's whole perspective can shift up in a week. You know, just by getting some edification from the Lord, and however it may come. You know, so with all that being said, you know, be circumspect to yourself. You know, is your body looking worse? Is your spirit looking worse? Are you feeling worse? Are you moving in a way that's just gonna move you out the door? You know, you can see things, man. Observe yourself. Take a fucking look. It says, taste and see what the Lord is good, that the Lord is good. Blessed is a man that trusteth in him. You know, so we're able to even taste and see that, man. We're able to, you know, soak all that in, you know, and we're also able to physically see, you know, the testimony that the Lord has instilled in our lives, man. But this is going to verse Romans chapter 6 and verse 4. It says, therefore we are buried with him by baptism into death, that like as Hamashiach was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also walked in the newness of life. In the newness of life, you know, our spirit is completely geared towards the Lord, man. You know, we're constantly fighting against this body to do that which is right. And your body comes into subjection. You know, brothers will lock into their diets. Brothers will lock in to the way that we're supposed to be eating, and they'll see their blood pressure going down, man. You know, they'll see that their testosterone and their estrogen balances are way right. You know, so they have more mental clarity. You know, they'll see that you know, they're getting stronger. You know, they're feeling better. You know, they're able to read more. They're able to make more videos because they feel, you know, through the in the flesh they feel good because through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemi Shai, they ruled over it, man. They made that flesh do that which it was, you know, to succumb to the will of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, of that inward man too. But this is Ezekiel chapter 36 and verse 26. It says, a new heart will I also give you. And that word heart goes into the word la'ab, which means your mind. It says, and a new spirit will I put within you. You know, so you'll have a whole new mind. And even in your flesh and body, when you're lust or craving all these different things, when your mind is telling you, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I'm lustful, I'm on some folly right now, you know, the Lord put a new spirit within you, you know, because that's that growth, you know, for when you get an increase in the spirit, you know, your spirit that the Lord puts upon you is going to rule over that outward man. is going to put that outward man in subjection. When that outward man is put in subjection, you can see benefits happen out that outward man. You can see that the outward man is getting healthier. You see the outward man is, drawing back from a lot of these things. Brothers talk about once they start getting more active and, and get away from women so much and they have so much more clarity because they're literally putting that outward man in subjection through the spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, because ultimately this isn't of us. This is of the Lord. This is all a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual thing that the outward man even has those growth developments, because ultimately it comes from the Lord. It's an increase from the Lord. And it says, I will take away the stony heart of your flesh and I will give you a heart of flesh, giving us a new heart, a new way to move, a new way to think, and a new body. And ultimately the Lord's going to completely change these bodies. These bodies are corrupt. These bodies are indefinitely corrupt, and in the kingdom of Yahushua, we ain't gonna be in these same flesh and bodies, man. It's gonna be totally different. But this is Romans chapter 12 and verse 2. It says, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove that which is good and acceptable and perfect will of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. So transformed by the renewing of our mind, man. Changing the way we think, changing the way we move, changing, the way our flesh yearns for certain things, because through the spirit, like for example, when it comes to women that be outside that have men, you see a woman and she has a man, a regular nigga in the world, his body will look right at that woman, and look and lust after her, but bros, through the spirit and power of the Lord, with that spirit that the Lord puts within us, renews our mind, changes our mind, so we're not even really thinking about looking towards that, man. And if you do, you repent and you quickly like, whoa, she got a man, we not out here just fucking staring at another man's woman just like, oh, this is great, and then trying to repent later. No, your body ain't even geared towards that. Brothers, like if a woman's walking by and should a man, you can see him in the peripheral vision. Brothers' peripheral vision will literally change. Like you see a woman, like you see the man first, like high key. People in the world, they see a woman, they see that woman first, and then they don't really care about the man. Brothers' eyes literally change to where they perceive the man out of the two in the group firstly, and then they don't even look towards that woman, man. I hope this is making sense, right? Because people in the world, they'll see a man and a woman walking together, they looking at that woman, they looking up and down, but brothers, man, I've seen it. Brothers see a man and a woman, and brothers literally perceive that man out of the peripheral vision. They don't even make full eye contact with the man. They can't even really see that man, but it's just like persona non grata. They're just walking around, they're walking away. So the change in the, be not conformed to this world. That which is of this world is lustful like that. These people are just totally, jaw on the floor, lusting after all kinds of different things, man. But hey, this is Philippians chapter 4 and verse 8. And this reads, says, finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of a good report, is there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. It says, those things which you have both learned and received and heard and seen in me, do, and the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushua of peace, shall be with you. And that's beautiful, man. Purity, righteousness, not wickedness, man. Doing things that are expedient, things that do benefit you in this faith, man. And your body ultimately will come into that subjection. Your whole entire system will change towards, helping you keep going towards that goal, man. The Lord helps you in ways that you can't even really think of. The Lord delivers you in ways that you don't even perceive quite yet, and I myself first and foremost. There's a lot of things that the Lord is working, behind closed doors that we don't even perceive, man. And through the spirit, even your body, the way your body changes, and even decision making. Think about the prophets of old when they had to stand against things boldly, like the three holy sons. Through the spirit, the Lord, probably could have, ultimately it's the spirit that had him do that. But even in the fleshly matter, the spirit, could have had their certain hormones spike to where they standing 10 toes down. It's easier. I don't know if you bros ever lifted a heavy weight, and then afterwards your voice got deeper and you feel like a whole lot more confident. That instant spike. You know, the Lord will establish His men, to be comfortable even in uncomfortable situations. And another thing that proves that is adrenaline. A motherfucker will lift up a car, a straight up car. You know. Anyways, I pray this lesson was edifying. I want to last to give honor, praise, and infinite glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Kakodash.